So I hope you're well and having the most incredible day as always. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing well. Before we dive into this month's wrap-up video, I do just want to point out a few things. Firstly, my window is open. I tried filming this with my window closed and I basically melted into a puddle on the floor. It is so incredibly hot in the UK at the moment. I'm not complaining, but when you're filming, it is not a good vibe. Also, I haven't even put my lights up because it is just so hot. So I hope this setup is okay. I hope the background noise isn't too annoying, but we're gonna have to flow through it because otherwise I will melt physically on the floor and that'll be me over, so I hope you guys don't mind. But anyway, in today's video we are diving into my June reading wrap up. I only managed to read 8 books this month, which for me is not my favorite, I'm not gonna lie. Like 8 books for some people is absolutely loads and I'm so just grateful that I did manage to read that many, but I would love to have kind of hit over that 10 book mark just to like scratch off a few more of my TBR. But we had a busy month, so we read 8 books. I'm going to dive in and tell you all of the good and bad things about every single one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and carry on watching. So the first book I read in June was One by One by Freida McFadden. Now I'm not gonna lie, I love Freida McFadden so much that she has ruined a load of other thriller authors for me because I absolutely devour her plot twists. Like the plot twists in her book just literally make me binge read her books within like a day and I absolutely love it. However, this one wasn't my favorite, so I gave this one a 4-star. It just wasn't as plot twisty as I wanted it to be. Like I kind of had an inkling as to what was going on apart from like half of it, if that makes sense. So essentially what we've got is we've got a group of people who go away in a van. They're kind of friends but kind of like not. Like there's a lot going on within these group of people that you kind of find out along the way. I won't spoil it, but there's a few things going on. Like not everybody likes everybody, if you know what I mean. However, there was one relationship which really shocked me and I just cannot to this day get over that change in like the person. Like I was just absolutely floored. However, I did give this one a 4-star, as I said. Like I did really enjoy it, but I wouldn't say I was as kind of immersed in it as I was with her other books, like The Teacher, insane. Like The Inmate, incredible. This one was really good and I would recommend it if you do love Freida's books, but I wouldn't say this is like her best, most like bingeable book, if that makes sense. A brief description, as I've said, of this book is you've got a group of people that go away in a van and things happen along the way that like you just can't write it. Like obviously she wrote it, but you can't write it. Like if this happened in real life, it would be like a bad day turns into a worse day, turns into like a really unbelievable scenario, and it was really good. It's kind of how I imagine 5 Survive by Holly Jackson being, which I still need to read by the way, but by Freida McFadden. So I would recommend it. It just wasn't my absolute favourite of her books, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't want to give you guys too much of a spoiler into what the book's about, but that's basically the gist. You have a group of people. Does everybody make it out alive? Who knows? I'm not going to tell you, but you should read it. It was good. The next book I picked up in June was mine and Becky's book club pick. If you guys haven't seen me before and this is the first video or first wrap up that you're doing, me and my 2 friends, Becky and Becky, very confusing. We basically have like a little book club. It's just the 3 of us. We each pick a book, like once a month we each take a turn, and we just do it for fun. So this was Becky's pick and it was Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book I actually have had on my TBR for probably well over a year and I really enjoyed this book. So in this book you have Elliot and you have Maisie, and this is basically like a friends to lovers to not enemies but more so strangers to then friends to lovers. It was really sweet. I gave this one a 4-star. I wouldn't say this is my all-time favorite romance book I've ever read. Like I know that Sarah Caroli absolutely like raves about this book and I expected to give this one a 5-star simply because of that reason, but it just wasn't it for me. Like it wasn't so memorable that I'm still thinking about it to this day. I have some books in this video that I literally cannot stop thinking about, but this one for me just wasn't one of those. It was really cute and I really enjoyed it while reading it, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I can remember every single detail of this book up until now, if that makes sense. One thing I did really love about this book though is that it was a dual timeline sort of vibe. So it went through like past and present. You kind of found out how they became friends, their sort of feelings for each other then, and then how they changed in the present. And I really did enjoy that about this book. I love like a dual timeline. If it's done well, I really enjoy it. And I love like a dual POV as well. So this just like hit the nail on the head of a romance book that I enjoy. So that is why I gave it a 4-star. It just wasn't my absolute favourite, but I do think you should read it. If you love Christina Lauren's writing, you probably will really enjoy this book. So the next book I picked up in June was Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. Now, I read this book in a reading vlog. Make sure you go give it a watch because I freaking loved this book. This was a 5-star read. This whole trilogy was a 5-star read. I absolutely freaking loved it. I cannot tell you the emotions this book gave me. I laughed, I cried, I kicked my feet. Like, it had everything I wanted in a book. Like, I physically had tears running down my face. I actually had them running down my face. It was a bit embarrassing, but it was so good. This book, I just can't even, like, I want to be able to read this for the first time again, and I might have to do a reread of the whole series at some point because it was perfection. It was so good. So this book specifically focuses on Sloane and Lucian, and it's basically a friends to enemies to lovers, and you find out why Sloane and Lucian just don't really like each other. They don't get along, and you find out what the reason is. I'm not gonna lie, the reason behind it kind of annoyed me because I was like, why would you not speak to somebody for that reason for this period of time? Like, why were you so mad about it? But I loved the enemies to lovers. I love an enemies to lovers. This was perfect. The kind of growth between the two characters was just done so incredibly well, and it makes me giddy thinking about it. I loved it so much. So as I said, this was a 5-star read. If you're looking for a really great trilogy that's got spice, romance, it's got mystery, it's got found family, like you love everyone in these books, you need to read the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. If you're in the UK, I think you can get all 3 books from the works for like £16 or something. You really need to check them out. They are long. I will say that is the only thing. Like, these books are thick. Like, this last book I think was 700 odd pages, which for a romance is long. I'm talking a lot with my hands. I don't know what I'm doing, but anyway, for a romance that is a very long book. But the kind of mystery elements, the dual timelines, the dual POVs, like, it was just perfection. So good. So trust me, enjoy it. It was amazing. So the next book I picked up in June is actually for an upcoming reading vlog, so I'm not going to spoil this one too much. But the next book I picked up in June was... I completely understand the hype of this book. This book was perfection. It had everything I wanted in a fantasy and more. I am not the sort of gal that loves a too complicated fantasy. Like, sometimes when I was reading ACOTAR, like, some of it I was just like, I need to have a minute because it was just a lot going on. This is very similar in my opinion to the ways of like Powerless, like the way it's described and the kind of world building I suppose in it. It's very similar. This was just like the most perfect fantasy book I've ever read in my life. This was a 5-star read, and I just cannot describe to you how much I absolutely love this book. So in this book you've got Xaden and you've got Violet. Now Xaden is, how can I describe him? He is a mystery, let's just say. I didn't know if I was going to love him. I didn't know if I was going to hate him. I just really freaking love this book. Honestly, it was perfection. I feel like I wanted to laugh, I wanted to cry. I did cry reading this book, and if you have read this book, you probably cried at the same time I did, because those emotions, I just can't. I also didn't realise I would love dragons who can speak as much as I loved the dragons in this book. Like, I loved them. So this was a 5-star read. I absolutely loved it. I loved the enemies to lovers aspect. I loved the world building. It wasn't too complex. If you're having thoughts about reading this book and you're not sure whether is it going to be too like high fantasy and like too complicated, I personally didn't think it was, and I will be reading Iron Flame like ASAP because it was It was perfection. And now I don't feel bad about having 3 copies of it, because before I was very unsure as to how I had gained 3 copies of this book, but now I don't mind because it's absolutely incredible. So that was the next book I picked up. The next book I picked up in June was The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. Now this was picked for me by bestie Sophia, and I'm not gonna lie, I had my doubts about this book, and I'll tell you for why. Because a lot of people that I watch on YouTube had kind of started this, they'd like soft DNF'd it, they just didn't finish it at all, they didn't like it, they weren't interested in it, so I was a bit like, okay, like, am I gonna love this book? Guys, when I tell you this book was absolutely perfect. The way Sophia described it is that there is crack in this book. And I'm telling you, there is something in this book, because it was absolutely perfection. So picture this. Everyone shut your eyes. If you're watching this and you haven't shut your eyes, shut your eyes. So we've got Calla. She is a very fashionable, very beautiful, very like well-dressed Instagram gal. She then goes to Alaska for a reason that I'm not going to tell you guys. I feel like it does spoil it, so I won't mention it. But she goes to Alaska and she meets Jonah, who, picture this again, close your eyes. He is a very broody, moody, muscly, bearded pilot. And it's like instant enemies vibes. Like, he just doesn't like her. He sees her as a stuck-up, kind of spoiled girl, which she isn't, by the way. She's actually a really great female character. I don't want to say it's forced proximity, but it kind of is in a way. Like, they end up being pushed together a little bit, and it is just beautiful. Like, the found family in this book, I literally cried my eyes out in this book. I couldn't cry, even though I knew what was gonna come anyway. Like, when you're reading this book, you get to maybe halfway and you're like, okay, like, I know what's gonna happen at the end. Like, I can see it now, I'm gonna predict the future, and it kind of does happen in that way. But still, like, reading those words on the page, I was shocked. I was shooketh. I was sobbing my little heart out at this book, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was a 5-star read, by the way. Did I say that? It was a 5-star read. There's motorbikes going on outside. I'm so sorry, but it is a bajillion degrees in here. Anyway, I honestly have to finish this series. I believe there's 3 other books in this series. Let me check. So, yeah, so the Wild series, you have got The Simple Wild, Wild at Heart, Forever Wild, and Running Wild. And I just need to pick them all up ASAP. I think I have the second one. I'm so sorry again about the motorbikes, it's very inconvenient. Anyway, I need all of the books because this was the most beautiful book I've ever read, and it was just, it gave me the same feeling as the Knock 'Em Out series did. So I really think that if you like the Knock 'Em Out series, you will love this book. Kelsey, if you're watching, you need to read this book, please. It was so good, and it's not as long as the Knock 'Em Out series, so it was just, it was pure perfection. I loved it. Moving on to a book which I didn't like so much, we have got The Co-op by Tahara Dewitt, I think that's how you pronounce it. I mainly picked this one up because we were getting towards the end of the month and I was like, oh, I've read like 5 books, I need to pick a small one. So I picked this off my shelf, and I'm not gonna lie, like, this just wasn't it for me at all. I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the plot line, it was boring, nothing really happened, and I unfortunately just didn't really like it. So I gave this one a 2-star. It just wasn't, why is there a helicopter going over right now? And now there's seagulls. Okay, this video is just going to be chaotic. I am so sorry. Anyway, this one was a 2-star read. It was a marriage of convenience, but like I didn't connect to the characters enough to want them to be together. Does that make sense? Like, I was kind of reading it like, okay, you're getting married for this reason and this reason, money, as always. But like, but why? Do you know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't, it just didn't do it for me. Like, sometimes marriage of convenience, I'm not gonna lie, like, is written well. It's not my favorite. I love like an enemies to lovers. I love a dark romance. Like, I think I need to read a dark romance like ASAP, because I can feel myself getting in a slump. But yeah, this just wasn't like doing it for me. I didn't love it. I did get it from the works. I think it was like £2.50 or something. So if marriage of convenience is your thing, give this one a go. You might personally love it, but it just wasn't, it wasn't my vibe, and that was a shame, to be honest, because I'd heard that Funny Feelings, which is also by the same author, is like a really cute book, and I do still really want to read it, but yeah, this one just wasn't it for me, which is a shame because the cover, adorable. Love the cover, just didn't love the book. And the next book I picked up in June was The Long Game by Eleanor Armas. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I've had this on my shelf for, let's say, 9 or 10 months or so, and I just didn't itch to read it, but I thought, you know what, let's just do it. Let's listen to the audiobook and let's get her done. Now, I wasn't obsessed with this book. I don't know what it is about Eleanor Armas. I feel like some people absolutely love her writing, and it's not that I don't love her writing, I just think I'm not invested in the story. This one was, it was cute, like it had a good story. I just didn't really love it so much. This one was a 3-star read, so I didn't love it and I definitely didn't hate it. Like, if this sounds good to you, then definitely pick it up. So this one, you've got Adeline and you've also got Cameron. So Adeline is basically a, what's the word? Her father, I think, owns like a football team, so she kind of works within like the football industry and like the, or soccer, I should say, industry. And she basically has a really bad incident that kind of gets brought to the attention of social media. It goes everywhere, so she basically gets fired from her dad, like by her dad, which is awful, and gets sent to go and work on a different football team. What she doesn't realise is who the team is and their size, and the fact that he basically sent her to like the middle of nowhere, where she bumps into Cameron, who is like a moody ex-football player basically, and they basically come together to make the best of the situation. Again, it's like a grumpy sunshine. It just wasn't, I don't know how to describe it to you guys without sounding awful, but like I just wasn't loving it. Like I was listening to it and I was like, this is cute, but I'm not falling down on the floor like swooning at the guy, or like the girl's not making me laugh loads. Like I just didn't love the characters so much, and maybe that's what it was. I would recommend it if you love a good like Eleanor Armas book. Like I would say I felt the same about this as I did about The Spanish Love Deception and The American Roommate Experiment. Like they were good books, I just don't love them. Like I don't think I would really itch to read them again. Will I get rid of this book? Absolutely not. Like it is going to go on my bookshelves and look beautiful for the rest of time, but will I read it again? I don't think so. So yeah, that one was a 3-star. I didn't love it, but I definitely didn't hate it, so it was okay. And the last book I read in June was Mother Daughter Murder Night by Nina Simon. This was for mine and Kelsey's book club, which, if you guys didn't know, me and my amazing friend Kelsey, we have a book club. It's called the Across the Pond Book Club. You can find us over on Instagram, and if you guys want to follow us, make sure you do. And if you want to be part of the big group chat where we all kind of discuss the book, make sure you let us know. But this month's pick was Mother Daughter Murder Night. Did I love this book? No. I'm going to be honest with you guys, this was a 2-star read. I just didn't love it. As I said at the start of this video, Frida McFadden has simply, to be honest, ruined thrillers for me, because every book I expect the giant plot twists, the turns, the kind of like gasping at the pages. You know, I'm reading it and I'm like, I couldn't believe that will happen. This just was like a bit average. Like I wasn't shocked when I was reading it. I, to be honest with you, read half of it physically and then I picked up the audiobook because I just could not be bothered to read it. And I know that's awful, but I just wasn't loving it. This is also part of Reese's book club, which is Reese Witherspoon. She has like a book club as well. So I kind of had like insane high hopes for this, thinking it was going to be amazing, but it just didn't. When I read the title of this book and it was Mother Daughter Murder Night, I thought, oh my goodness, like what is going to happen? There's going to be a mother, there's going to be a daughter, they're going to kill somebody, and then it's going to be like them trying to hide it or something. But no, that's not what happened. And I just thought it was boring. Like I didn't expect that person to have done what they did, and I don't think it really made sense, and I wasn't obsessed. So I gave this one a 2-star, which is a shame. It was basically about a girl called Beth and her daughter Jack, and Beth's mother Lana. And Lana has an illness, which you find out really, really early on, and she ends up moving in with Beth and Jack, and then a body appears. And that's all I'm going to tell you. If it sounds interesting to you, definitely give it a read. I give it a 2-star. Wasn't my favourite. So those are all of the books I read throughout June. I really hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I would love to know down below, what did you read in the month of June and what was your favourite? As always, if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel and also like this video if you enjoyed it. I love you guys so incredibly much, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.